The first news I want to throw at you, bud. Julio Chavez Jr. He was detained, arrested by ICE agents, and deported back to Mexico, allegedly working for the cartel in Mexico. Obviously, extremely sad news. This news comes only days after his fight versus Jake Paul. Just want to get your take on it.
I mean, listen, if there's obviously we have to believe what we're hearing, and that there's facts there, obviously. So it's sad in a lot of ways. I mean, this is a great boxing name. Uh, this is one of the great boxing names, not only in Mexico and anywhere in the sport. His father, his father Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., one of the great fighters of all time, or maybe the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, but one of the great lightweights of all time. To tarnish that name, like that, and the grief that it brings to the family, that's what strikes me first, is to know the grief that it's going to be. You make your choices. That's your choice. If that's the choice he made, there's repercussions for that choice. But then the collateral damage, that's what gets me, is what you do to your family by making that choice. It's sad. It's very disappointing to hear. Again, we're just reporting the facts, and those things don't happen unless obviously the people that go in Department of Justice, the Homeland Security, they don't go and arrest someone unless they have facts. At the end of the day, maybe it speaks a little bit to the lack of performance. I mean, we've known that he's had a lot of problems with drugs, with being in and out of the sport, losing the fights he's lost, going up in weight, just the way that he's handled himself, the way that he's behaved. Maybe now it ties in a little bit and gives some explanation, even though you don't want an explanation for that kind of behavior in some ways. But maybe it connects to why he's been that way for these years. But it also does give you a little maybe explanation again to why he didn't do anything that night. That he just looked like he wasn't there to fight. With all those things going on in his life, how could your mind be right? How could your body be right? How could you be in shape? How could, even against a guy who, like people love to say, he's a YouTuber, Teddy. Yeah, I know. Okay. But he's a YouTuber that took boxing seriously, that's big, that's strong, that had a vision, that, has put it on canvas, if you will, gone out there and acted on the vision. And then he's got this, he picks his spots, so he picked a good spot again. But again, it might give you a little bit of an answer to why, Chavez would have that kind of performance. That you can't be right if you're living that kind of life. You can't behave like a fighter if you're not living a life like anything close to being connected. And I'll leave you with this: as long as we went down that rabbit hole, what the freak? Me, I go all the way. It's going to make some people start to think, hey, was there a deal there? Yeah, some people will think that. They'll say, wait a minute, I don't think that Jake Paul would do that. I really don't. I don't think, but some people might start to think that, did he know that he was getting a guy who wasn't really going to try? Because some people are going to say he only tried at the end of the fight. So was there, some people are going to say, hey, this guy, a guy like that, there's nothing beneath him. Is it possible there was a deal in hand? That now that we know this, I'm just putting out there what I know that some people are going to think. I'm not saying that I believe that, but I'm honest enough, and I think forthright enough to and sharp enough to say, hey, that stuff is probably floating in the air in the aftermath of him being arrested after that kind of performance. Bud, there's some people are probably going to say, maybe maybe he was just there to grab a little more money and they made a deal, because there's some people that feel that the Jake Paul Tyson fight, there was a deal, that fight that didn't amount to be much of a fight. And then how could it? One guy was what, 58, one guy was 28. I get it. But still people expected, because of the greatness of Tyson, they expected something. And again, no accusations. I'm doing my job. My job is to put out what is floating in the air.